So as Christian mentioned, we were fortunate to be in a position where we became the first tech company in Silicon Valley to partner up with the organization Europe, and we've never looked back. It's exceeded all of our expectations. On the order of 40 to 50 interns have come through the program over the last 4 years, and roughly 60% of those young adults have gone on to work at LinkedIn after the internship has been completed, which is a testament to the amazing skill and ability of the folks that we've been able to work with. And this kind of partnership between LinkedIn and Europe is exactly what the world needs more of. You take a step back, and increasingly there's recognition that arguably the defining issue of our time is going to be the creation of economic opportunity for people, not just here in the Bay Area of the United States, but on a global basis. Closing the opportunity divide, ensuring that people that have the natural ability, the perseverance, the resilience, the grit, the passion, that they have access to jobs, that they have access to the skills and the training they need to give back and be productive. And that's exactly what I believe our partnership has proven, and that continues to grow as Europe is now in 14 cities in this country. And it's not just inner cities where you see this disconnect between the students and the young adults that so badly want these opportunities, but you look on a global basis, and today you could tear a page out of any headline and you'll see this ongoing debate as to the future of Greece and the Greek economy and whether or not it will continue to be a part of the EU. And what you may not realize is that youth-based unemployment in Greece is hovering north of 50%. 1 in 2 of the young adults graduating in Greece don't have access to opportunity. And the same number holds in Spain, and it's hovering around that 50% mark in some of the other Southern European countries as well. So this is a global issue. And you project out what happens when you disenfranchise an entire generation of people. And there are very dire consequences to that, not only for the economy, but society itself. So the work taking place here, it matters. It matters deeply, and it's making a difference. And I commend Jay and your entire team, this year's class, and all of the alums on the extraordinary work you're doing. So thank you for that. I also want to shine a light and highlight for you a little bit on the great work that's taking place. You know, there's a lot of consideration in terms of the relationships being built, the partnerships being forged, not only with LinkedIn, but other companies within the Bay Area. But it's so much more than that. Europe is so much more than that, and Jay's vision for what's possible is so much more than that. It's about leveraging innovation and technology to make a difference and advance the cause. So one example would be the way we've been able to partner together so that Europe has access to the data produced by LinkedIn's economic graph. And in doing so, the organization is able to identify the fastest growing jobs, the skills required to obtain those jobs, and then to leverage that data to essentially create just-in-time training programs, just-in-time curriculum, so that Europe can train its students, its young adults, for the jobs that are and will be, and not just the jobs that once were. And this is what we need more of. So I want to turn now from Europe and the amazing work it's doing to today's graduating class, Europe Bay Area Class 13, and talk a little bit about the future. And specifically, I guess you could argue one of the most frequently asked questions I get from young adults in your position, from our interns, from people that are just embarking on their career path, is some advice for how they can be successful, how they can achieve their goals. And so I want to share just now briefly with you 3 pieces of advice I would have in terms of how you can ensure you're able to do the kinds of things that you're dreaming of doing. First, know what it is you want to do. Now that may sound simple and it may sound obvious, but it never ceases to amaze me, I've been at this now a couple of decades, how many people, sometimes well into their careers, have never taken the time to ask themselves that question, what it is they want to accomplish. They get swept up in these streams of opportunity, a job at a hot company, a raise, a promotion, and they wake up 5, 7, 10 years down the road, and they're not happy, and they wonder why. And so one of the exercises that I recommend when you're starting to embark on your career path, and even when you're at that career path, is to look out into the future, 20, 30, even 40 years, and then look back and ask yourself the question, what is it that you want to have accomplished with your career? And by my own personal experience, I've come to believe in this with every fiber of my being. When I was about 24 years old, I worked in strategic management consulting, and I was very fortunate in that I had known what I wanted to do, at least in terms of the long-term arc of my career, from an even younger age than that. I wanted to help reform the US education system. And that's evolved over time. It's really about democratizing access to information, and since then it's evolved even still. Today, I'd like to be part of helping to expand the world's collective wisdom and compassion. But rewind the clock to when I was about 24 years old, and this idea of education reform and democratizing access to information, I felt like with the coming rise of digital technology and the convergence of digital technology and media, that was the industry I wanted to be in. And my father was a veteran of the media industry for a couple of decades. He worked for a television network. And so I would call my dad and say, this is the kind of thing I'm interested in doing, what would you recommend? And he'd say, you know, it would be helpful if you could write down your thoughts about what it is you want to do, and try to be as specific as you possibly can. It will make all the difference, because when you're that specific, it begins to manifest itself in explicit and implicit ways. And I don't mean that in some fatalistic, predeterministic, new age way. I mean it in a real way. And case in point, I ended up writing that cover letter to my father, and I talked about working in the corporate development group for a major media conglomerate. And that would be a wonderful place to learn about this growing convergence between technology and media. And true story, within about 6 to 8 weeks, my office mate at that strategic management consulting firm got a call from a headhunter who was looking to fill a job in the corporate development group at Warner Brothers, which is one of the companies I wanted to work for. And he had just accepted Harvard Business School's offer. And he knew what I wanted to do, so he passed it along to me. And 3 months later, I was on a plane to Burbank, California. And 3 months after that, I wrote Warner Brothers' first online business plan. That was in December of 1994. Pains me to admit that. It's looking back a long time. And that's why I believe so much in the power of knowing what it is that you ultimately want to do. An important corollary to that is making sure that you're optimizing for 2 dimensions. The first is passion, and the second is skill. And it's not one at the exclusion of the other. You know, when I was working at Warner Brothers, I was living in Los Angeles, and there were a lot of people in Los Angeles who aspired to make their way into the entertainment industry. Not necessarily from the business perspective, but movies, TV, music. They were extremely passionate about it, but they may not necessarily have had what it took to make it happen. And that's going to lead to a lot of heartbreak and a lot of disappointment. And then conversely, there's people with extraordinary skill who get paid a lot of money for the value that they add, but they're miserable. If you've ever heard the expression golden handcuffs, that's what it's referring to a large extent. Doing something that generates a lot of value, but you don't necessarily find any passion in it. So you want to optimize for both passion and skill, not one at the exclusion of the other. The only additional corollary I would add to this is that it's okay to not know what it is you ultimately want to accomplish. Although in talking to some of you beforehand, I think every one of you has a really clear path. It's a big world out there. Try different things. And if you don't know what you want, pay close attention to the things that resonate most deeply with you and the areas where you're generating those skills. This wasn't planned, but as we got together for the picture before today's event, I was standing next to a woman named Linda. Where's Linda? There she is, right in the middle. No, she's standing up and waving. I could have predicted that in light of the conversation we had while taking the picture. She is not shy, our Linda. So it turns out Linda has been interning at LinkedIn. None of this was choreographed, I promise you. And so we're striking up a conversation, and I said, how's it going? She said, it's going great, I love it. I'm working for the video production team under a guy named Alex, who's also here. And it's unfortunate because it turns out there's not enough open seats in terms of new hires for me to get a job right now in this area at the company, and I expect her to be really disappointed. And she said, but that's okay. And I said, really? And she said, oh yeah, it's fine. I'm going to end up at LinkedIn. I was like, oh, you are? And she said, oh yeah, I know I am, because I know what I want to do. I want to work for a nonprofit one day or run my own and help disadvantaged teens, kids that really need the help. And the LinkedIn for Good program at LinkedIn, that's what I'm going to do next. It's going to happen. And so that's the power of knowing what it is that you ultimately want to do. And when you have that, you will manifest it. And I'd put a pretty big bet on Linda being able to realize that goal. Okay, so first, know what it is you ultimately want to do. Second, surround yourself with the best people, period. Now, when I was younger, I used to understand the importance of talent, but I used to think of that in terms of my boss or a mentor, someone that would be there for me to help train me, teach me, to help pick me up if I fell down, to allow me to take risks. And as I've grown throughout my career, and as the world has continued to evolve, today's world is more global, more networked, more digital. You can't just do it on your own, and you can't just do it based on one relationship. It's all about teams, teamwork, and collaboration. So it's not just about picking the right person to work